Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Sam Bryan Asks His Friends. And today is a little bit of a different one. I'm joined today by Modupe Daramola and Dami Milburn. These two guys are people from the Black Lives Matter protest that went in Durham, the peaceful protest. Hi guys, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Brilliant. Black Lives Matter, especially the one in Durham, was seen across the country for being one of the few that remained peaceful, that was done really well. The All Lives Matter gang that turned up proved themselves to be the bother, which was obviously really good. First of all, the question I'd like to ask is, we'll start with you, Dami, and then move on to Modupe. What made this different? Obviously, this all stemmed from George Floyd's killing in America, and what made this the straw that broke the camel's back?
I think people have just been maybe innocently ignorant of the issue, because it doesn't concern them. It's not them being persecuted in the streets. I guess you could term it like white privilege. You've always not empathized with that experience. But then when you saw a video so clearly, so vividly, of someone, just a human being really being lynched in broad daylight for 9 minutes, I think that just questions something in everyone's humanity that is just not right. No human being should be treated like that, tortured on the street for 9 minutes, because there were 4 officers relying on him, and it was just horrible. I think that's just what took everyone, as sad as it was, that's what took everyone to see the movement as serious.
Modupe, do you have any more to add to that?
I think that what really made that particular event stand out more is because, a week before, right, we heard about Ahmaud Arbery. We heard that 2 white men followed him when he was jogging and shot him, and everyone saw the video. And then everyone was already outraged and just trying to find justice. And then the next day, I remember hearing, Breonna Taylor was also killed in her sleep, right? And then everyone was like, wow, this is, unharmed, and how are we just hearing about it now? And then, a week after, we hear that Christopher Cooper, he just goes to do his casual, usual bird watching. And then we have a white woman calling the police and saying an African-American man. And then everyone's already angry that, okay, what is happening? What is going on? And the literal next day, we see a black man on the floor saying, I can't breathe, which is obviously reminiscent of what happened to Eric before, when he was saying, I can't breathe, and the police officer ignored, and he died. And I think everything happening all at once just sort of felt it's time, let's do something. I think now it's too much, it's getting out of hand, and nobody is listening anymore. I think we need to stand out now. We need to fight now, basically, fight. After everything was happening all at once, it just seemed too much. And I think that's what really brought up such outrage, basically, in addition to what Dami had said.
Yeah, definitely. How does it make you feel when you see a video like that? Because we've all seen them, and we've all seen hundreds of videos. It's not just George Floyd, it's not just Ahmaud Arbery, it's not even just the stories of, like you mentioned there, Modupe, of Breonna Taylor and that. As long as social media has been around, there have been videos of, and not just police, but of Black people being killed and treated unfairly. So Modupe, I just want to carry on from that. How does that, when you see that, how does that make you feel?
First of all, I think I would like to, that's a very important question, and I'd just like to first of all point at if I would say, using this term very carefully, disrespect of Black lives. We need to really respect and realize how precious a life is. And so when I go on social media and just see a video of, let's say, my friend getting shot just like that, people sharing it carelessly without thinking, or like how his family taking this, or are we just sharing like the blatant murder of someone across social media? Nobody cares. Like, I literally saw someone's child get shot on the street. Like, I just felt like this was such an invasion of someone's privacy, and I just think that it's blatant disregard of Black people's rights to privacy that leads to the sharing of such videos. That's the first thing I would say. And second of all, I'll say that even though it sort of like dots on the lack of respect that we have for the dead, especially for Black dead people, it just sort of is important that we see such things as well. It reminds me of of Emmett Till. I don't know if you know his story, but the little boy that was obviously lynched by 2 white men because of the lady said he whistled at her, and his mom demanded that they have an open casket so we see like what they have done, which is why it's important that we see so we know what they have done. So I think, like, although those sharing of videos, it can get a little bit like invasive, and I feel like it just leads to I question, like, should we have the right to do this kind of thing, or how do family feel? We do need to see such things sometimes. Like, we need to know that this is the reality of things. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Dami, anything?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's just traumatic. As someone that has never been affected by anything like that, to see how people are treated too, it just all seems as though, and I'm not going to talk about it because I have no place to talk about it, but as a white person, it seems like a million miles away. And it shouldn't.
That's like what I always say. I think like white people can definitely like see this and be shocked and be outraged, and it might feel like a million like miles away, as you've said, but to me it just felt like, that could have been me. Like, it could happen to me anytime, like nowhere is safe for like a Black person. So every time we see this, it just feels like, oh, like today was another name, tomorrow it can be mine. I know obviously like Ahmed did not go out to jog thinking that would be his last day alive. So you never know like when is your last day, and it's just really scary that we just have to just always consider that this might happen. It's a very strong possibility. Every single day we just do normal things like jogging or sleeping or like ordering food. It's just really crazy.
Yeah. It's like, I even posted a post on my Instagram about like having anxiety of like sometimes walking down the streets, especially late at night. Like, I just feel like I'm a target just because of my skin color. Like, it's just this fear. Like, I've always had this fear, like, and I never really understood what it was. I just knew it was uncomfortable feeling like I'm walking down the street. I just know something could happen, whether I get insulted because of my skin color or get attacked even. Like, thankfully, we're not living in America where you can literally get shot, and yeah, sad as it is, like, even recently, like the past 3 days, there's been lynchings, like, 3 people have been lynched, and they've said it's like a not a homicide, it's a suicide, but given the like civil unrest and the whole political feeling in the country, I just don't feel like maybe that's what it was, but that's a different conversation. But on the point of just the anxiety, I do feel it sometimes. In fact, all the time.
Yep, and I do as well. I think like it's very good that you mentioned the lynching, because I definitely know that like those are definitely not suicides, and I feel like it's the extremist like group, like the white people or the like racists, right, just taking action and trying to send a message. So anytime I want to go out, like I'm always like, oh shit, what if someone attacks me now based on what's happening now? They could just, anyone can just attack me now. I mean, they already like say things to me like go back to your country or this on a normal day. So I imagine like what about now that there's a race war going? Like,
Mhm.
surely, like, I'd be a very easy
Exactly.
target, like going around
Yeah.
as a woman and not being able to defend myself sometimes.
Mhm.
I just prefer to just stay in. So I definitely get
Yeah.
that anxiety part that you're saying.
Mhm.
I prefer to just stay in than be a victim. I definitely don't want to be a victim
Yeah.
to anything. I don't want to be a hashtag or anything like that. So I just prefer to be in and not like become a story or something like that. No, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that because when the whole situation was happening and the whole protests were happening, I was even hesitant to go to the protest as well. And also before, after the incident, after the whole blowback of the George Floyd killing, I just didn't want to go even to the shops because I was just like, I don't want people to look at me in the street and go like, the whole reflection of what's going on, like me being a target, because this is the sudden discussion of what's going on in society and, prevalent, the fact that we're Black people, and that's the prevalent discussion. And then you're going out to the street shopping and you might get looks and stuff like that. That's also part of it. Like, it's just, it's, it's really hard sometimes, but
it's a sad reality of things.
yeah, I feel like it's also, you're conditioned to accept it. Like even racism in general, like even when it happens to you, you're just conditioned to like either sweep it under the rug or like take it on the chin, like, move on with it because what can you do? Like, as in, those people are always gonna have those ignorant beliefs, ignorant views. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some of the questions I might ask might sound basic, but what I really want to show with this podcast today is that I want it to be viewed by people that, as I said, this has never been a problem to before. So some of the things just are ridiculous. I'd like to say that in advance before any of that stuff comes up. What it is, obviously it's been seen and people have been saying, oh, the UK isn't like that, the UK is not like that. The UK is I think it might be the only country or one of the only countries in the world that had an anti-protest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yes.
what?
Is that not
Yes.
just absolutely ridiculous?
It's
Can I just,
extremely shocking.
can I just add something to that? I was actually conflicted when the counter protest was happening because on one hand I was like, oh, this is horrible because it's being shown like like so vividly, like you see it like now, like people were saying, oh, there's no racism in the UK, but then you see it. And then on the other hand, I'm happy because we're finally vindicated because we've been saying it all these years and people have always been like, yes, there's no racism in the UK, like, because everything's casual and like, it's not overly like shown. But yeah.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people's misunderstanding comes from is that our police in this country are a bit less trigger happy than the Americans, but that
Well,
doesn't
they don't
mean
have guns.
yeah, but that it obviously doesn't mean that like for example the stop and search thing in London, like that whole rule, and in theory it makes sense, but in practice it is a racist act and Black people are being stopped all the time.
Can I add as well? One thing I always like try to explain to like my white friends and a lot of like my foreign friends that, British racism, it's not like overly in your face, as Dami said. It's not like they don't carry a gun and shoot you. It's more like little like microaggressive things like, oh wow, like you speak so well, for a Black girl. Or like, oh, in your country, do you have cars? Or like,
Do you live in
how are
huts?
you? Oh yeah, do you live in huts? Or like, it's curiosity mixed with like ignorance, and just brings out this, racism. And then when I say, oh, that's racist, they begin to get really defensive. I'm like, oh no, I wasn't racist.
Have a sense of humor.
Yeah, which is like, oh, you're just taking it too seriously. So a lot of like British racism, and it's not like on a lesser scale as the American one, because it starts off as microaggression, and then it grows up to like having an opinion of this kind of people. It grows up into like becoming the institution that we have today. This is why like England's racism is more of a systemic one, in that the system just doesn't work. It doesn't work for Black people, and a lot of people of color just benefits the white people, made by white people for white people to benefit them alone. And the, like as you've said, and as we're doing now, it's just having more conversations and opening people's eyes and letting them see all these things. It can lead to the undoing of these kind of things.
What that sort of leads beyond to, and this has become a huge talking point at the moment, like you just mentioned there, Modupe, a lot of it comes from curiosity, because there's a lot of people, I can imagine, please tell me if I'm wrong, but some of these people that ask you questions probably aren't racist people. They are just uninformed. They are uneducated on the matter.
Ignorant, yeah.
And that is something that this
yeah.
country because it's not like this country is going to become less diverse. So why not embrace the history of all of its citizens?
I don't know. I just think that, I don't know how to put this. I think people need to be very careful with the way they say things, right? So I should be able to frame my curiosity in a way that is very sensitive and a little bit with an open mind. For example, just asking the question, you speak so well. Where does it come from? It comes from a place of Black people speak with a Southern accent. So it stems from Black people, African people don't speak English properly. We speak a kind of language. Rather than saying I speak so well for a Black person, or just say, oh, you made a lot of sense with what you said, period. Or I really liked what you said. I loved what you said. Could you explain more? Or you don't say you speak so well for a Black person. I know, like, it might come from a place of like, oh, I intend to compliment you because I've enjoyed what you've said, and you really educated me on the matter. But where it stems from is the belief that Black people just don't know how to speak good English. African people, African women don't know how to speak good English. And so I feel like I've seen this African girl that can speak good English. And so she's like the rare one. So I have to tell her that, for a Black person, you speak well. And as you've said as well, like rightly so, they might not be racist, but once again, it stems from a racist foundation. It stems from the fact that there's this racist mentality that a lot of people have and they don't know they have. And once again, it's having these conversations and letting them know that this is racist, and then it is also them equally accepting and equally being willing to listen. One thing I always tell my friend is, when I tell you something is racist, do not defend it, because you are in no position to understand what I am saying, because you are white, I am Black. So if I say, oh, that's a little bit offensive, you don't go and defend yourself. You listen. Oh, how let me know, how was that racist? Or I think it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Oh, I'm very sorry. Period. Like, that's how to have a conversation, and that's how to learn. I know it's like a little bit overwhelming when someone says, what you said is racist, or what you said is a bit offensive. It can get really shocking. Wow, I didn't know. But as long as you're willing to unlearn and, just apologize. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't intend to sound right. And if I did, I'm sorry. And that's fine. I'm very happy. Yeah, you've learned a new thing today. It's a good thing.
I think that even stretches out into broader society, because when you say to someone, you upset me, people's first reaction is to go no, I didn't. You aren't in a position to tell me how I feel. So that sort of thing, what you've just been mentioning there, Modupe, that is obviously different, but the sort of sentiment behind it is the same, where people are far too eager to be right all of the time.
Exactly. I always say, generally in society, as you've said, no one should trivialize another person's feelings. So if you've come to me and told me, oh, Modupe, you've hurt me, the first thing I would do is I wouldn't say, I've learned, right, not to say, oh, I haven't, I didn't intend to. I would say, oh, wow, how? Oh, how? And then they tell me, oh, you've done this. And I'd be like, oh, wow, I didn't intend to. And, you know, if it came across as that, I'm very sorry. And obviously, like, there's some things that you obviously defend. You obviously, like, also, you know, I didn't do that. Or I didn't, like, you know, do this. It's like a very serious accusation. But some things like feelings, or, you know, you've hurt me. This made me uncomfortable. Those are not things that you can defend, because that's how they are felt. And it is very important, like, that we take into account how people feel. We need to always understand that everyone's feelings are very important, and how they take things are very important as well. So yeah, you're very right when you say that.
Dami, I've got a bit of a question here for you. Well, for both of you, but I'll start with you, Dami. What we've seen on social media since George Floyd particularly has died, people have come out and say he was violent, he was da-da-da. They've brought up all of the things that he has done, none of which, by the way, deserve for a person to be killed. Some of the crimes that he has committed, he has served the time. But why do you think, Dami, that people have started to demonize and just make him seem like he deserved it?
I think particularly it's because of the way he's been portrayed. Like, I feel like maybe he's being portrayed as a martyr, like a martyr figure for the Black community, and it's not his fault. It's just the way it happened. He just happened to be someone who was killed innocently. He didn't resist arrest. He got taken out of the vehicle and he got put against the wall, and then he got put on the floor, and then they choked him out and killed him for no reason. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I feel like people just can't accept that, you know, it was like a racist attack. Like, because of his skin color, people just can't accept. Some sections of people can't accept that. Just like the All Lives Matter people, they just can't seem to understand that. Like, we're not saying that, you know, all other lives don't matter. It's just particularly that at this in this situation, it's Black people being killed more prevalently, and also regarding those people who trying to demonize them. Yeah, I just feel it's just they just can't accept that, you know, that racism exists probably. Or, you know, something that you know, they're trying to justify that he deserved it because what happened to him was so bad that they're like, we can't accept that he got killed because he was innocent. We're just gonna try and make up things that, you know, try to fit the to try and make him like seem that he deserved it, because, you know, he must have done something to deserve it. But in the truth is, he actually didn't do anything, and he got killed so brutally. So people just can't accept that he got killed so brutally, like, without doing anything.
I think that's a really important point. What you've said there, it seems like, for example, the crime, inverted commas, the crime of like, and the punishment don't add up. So it doesn't fit in with people's narrative that you would be killed for something like that. And the reality is, people are killed for things like that, and they are killed for less than that in America.
It was the nature of it. It was like 4 police officers strangling him and taking his life away. It was just so brutal that people can't accept that he didn't do anything. So they would try and make up crimes, or try and look at things in his past. And, you know, particularly people like Candace Owens, who were trying to like drive that movement, which just completely confused. Like, you know, it just confuses me why people would do that, really, because they're taken away from the discussion at issue. Like,
Anything to add, Modupe, on that?
Well said, Dami. I think like a lot of, you know, bringing up his past conviction stems from just trying to justify why the police did what they did to him, or why he deserved to die like that. It also, for me, it sort of shows me again that Black people in America and also like around the world are not like, we can't make mistakes, you know, stuff like stealing from a shop, right? Or having a bad check or a counterfeit bill. These are mistakes that everyone makes. So white people can make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if a Black person makes that kind of mistake, you know, it's death. Like, so when they begin to bring up past convictions, it shocks me, because I don't know, like, who expects Black people to be perfect? Who also gave you the permission to bring the law into your own hands? An example is obviously Ahmed Arbery. Like, what happened to him? The man said he thought Ahmed was going to steal from a building, right? And so he pursued him with his car and stopped him. And to me, I was like, and obviously it came out eventually, Ahmed didn't steal anything, and I was like, even though the boy stole £1 million from the building, it still isn't enough to justify, like, it doesn't justify what you have done. There's a reason why the law says everyone is innocent until proven guilty. There's a reason why we have laws. There's a reason why we have standards. There's a reason why we have the things that we have. So this sort of trying to bring a crime, right? Trying to associate the Black person with a prior crime. It just sort of takes me back to the fact that people don't expect like Black people to make mistakes. We have to be perfect. And it's shocking, because what you realize, especially with the story of Christopher, right, is that even perfection is not enough for like to save us from white violence. Because Christopher is a man who's done nothing, like no conviction and no like single mistake. He was just there to like do his like usual hobby, and this white woman said an African American man just trying to make him a target. And so we see that even perfection is not enough, even Black excellence is not enough, and so they have to bring in past convictions, which shocks me, because everyone's allowed to have mistakes, everyone's allowed to have past, like everyone's allowed to have stolen from a shop, because these are like usual things that white people do all the time. White people have history of going to take guns to schools and have school shootings, and a normal like teenager, right, goes to Sainsbury's and picks up something and runs away, and you know they call the police, and everyone sort of, you know, said pat in the hand, or don't do it again, and that's all. Like, we move on because people make mistakes as they grow. But you find that for white people, it gets wiped, it gets seen as, you know, as a life lesson, you grow. For Black people, if something happens in the future, they bring up my mistake from taking a candy bar from Sainsbury's. As Dami said, rightly so, it's just to justify like what was done, just to prove that the police did the right thing by taking away one more criminal from the society, even though it's, I don't definitely agree.
Can I just add to your point as well on the subject of white people's crimes being treated differently to Black people's and not being given the right of way to like be able to grow from certain crimes and being persecuted immediately. Like, I don't know if you remember the school shooter who got, I can't remember his name, but he killed like a lot of people in a school somewhere in America. And he was held outside by policemen. And then on the way to the police station, he got taken to Burger King. And I'm just like, wait, so there's a school shooter, like he's killed like tens of kids. And there's someone who's just had a counterfeit check and you just killed him. And there's someone, you're treating him like to Burger King after he just killed some kids. Like, it just doesn't compute for me. But yeah, I just felt that added to your point.
And then it came out yesterday in complete contrast to that I can't remember the exact details, but there was a little girl held in this country who was a refugee, and she died because she was dehydrated in an airport in England. Because she'd came over illegally and she wasn't even given water and died of.
That's tragic. Can I just add to that as well? You know, the people who are saying all lives matter. like to as a counter argument to the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, what about immigrants? Like the way immigrants are treated, like people coming from different countries, like African immigrants, or even people from the Eastern Europe, particularly. This is sentiment against those people, or they're stealing our jobs. If all lives mattered, then why are those people being treated like as unequal? Why are they being treated like, the second class citizens? Like, if this all lives matter movement is like this, like, oh, like this argument, like, yeah, we all matter, then why are you being a hypocrite and also demeaning other sections of society, not just Black people, also minorities, and also migrants from different countries around the world, just because they're foreigners? Like, it just defeats the argument of all lives matter.
You've hit the
Quotation
nail
mark.
on the head. You've hit the nail on the head. We are seeing at the moment so many of these signs from all over the world that people are making, and one stuck in my head, and it said, "If all lives matter, why aren't you mad too?" It's like, well, we know why, because these are just racist people.
Yeah, completely agree.
Look, what I'd like to talk about is how you guys are finding the response all over the world in so many countries that we're seeing. There are people storming the streets. There's people in our city in Durham. There was a peaceful protest, socially distant, good, and then there's other places all over the world that are saying time's up. And how have you found the response that you're seeing to the tragedies that's happened? Modupe, we'll start with you, please.
I think for me, it is very encouraging. I think it's good that we're seeing that we're not the only ones that are angry. A lot of people around the world. I mean, I've heard of like the protests in Japan, in New Zealand, in different countries, and it's just nice to see that we have allies who are willing, despite the virus and the pandemic that we're still like having, who are willing to risk their lives and just pass across the message. For me, like, a protest isn't just like a thing. It's not just a little thing. Protests are very powerful, and they send across a very powerful message of allyship and saying that we hear you, we see you, and we are understanding like what you're going through, and we're ready to fight with you. And so just seeing everything that's going on now, a lot of them are very progressive. They're a sign of progression as well. There's also a lot of performative action from a lot of people, a lot of universities, a lot of like political leaders as well. I say performative because a lot of them are in positions of power. They have power to make change. I say this all the time. I say that the people that can undo racism as white people can't undo this. They have the power to do this. My university, I remember seeing they posted the black box, on the blackout day, and they like wrote a message about how like they strongly condemn racism and they don't stand for that. And for me, like, them even doing anything at all was just completely insulting. I think, like, especially knowing what I have been through as a Durham student and what my friends have been through, and the university's response, action from them and them making that sort of statement just felt very insulting and just felt like performative. They had to do it just because everybody was doing it. So I strongly I'm happy with the people that are doing it because, they want to stand with us. And you can always tell, you can always know who is being performative and who is, actually who is trying to learn and understand, and who is like just taking steps and okay, yeah, I've realized my privilege now, and I would just like to learn and how I can undo and how I can convince my friends that it's not okay to say these things, and just how I can check myself. So I'm very happy, obviously, and as well I'm also insulted, like I said, about the performative actions I've seen from people like my university and other people as well.
Dami, how's the response made you feel?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's positive because I feel like not just Black people, everyone else is joining us, together to try and combat racism. And yeah, I think it's positive. The protests, like majority of people in the protests are actually white people. And maybe that's just because the population is majority white, but it's still positive that everyone else is seeing our struggle and trying to help us. But I do feel like protests are helpful, but at the same time we need to use that sentiment that everyone's having and use it to lobby politicians, try and make actionable change. Like, I think primarily education is really, really important. Me personally, maybe this is just a, um, a sad point on my part, but I think this generation particularly is already, I don't think I don't think racism is going to be ended in our generation. I think it's going to be the next generation. And I think education is really important because if you can inspire kids and, teach kids about these issues, particularly the British Empire, which has been whitewashed, it's been covered up, everything has been covered up by the British government in education. I didn't learn about the British Empire. I had to go and do my research about it. But I just knew because obviously I'm Nigerian and we were colonized by the British. So I've just had that inner understanding of the British Empire. But I do feel like that is important. Education is really important. People need to learn these values in school first, and that's what's going to develop people in society. That's what's going to help to change views in society, because these kids are going to grow up and having understood their struggle, and they can challenge their parents, their relatives, change society from within.
I, as a white person, had always been sort of told in no uncertain terms to be proud of Britain and of being British, and the fact that obviously the British Empire, the largest empire to have ever in human history, and
enslaved 200 countries.
And literally owning like a third of the world or whatever it came down to, and that was always something to be like, there was known to be proud of. And sure, there will have been some positives, trade routes, whatever, but at what cost? And that's what a lot of people in this country don't understand. At what cost to Africa, to we're hearing a lot about, obviously, with Winston Churchill at the moment in India, even the North America, the Native American people, at what cost to their lives, their culture, their entire way of living? Is it something really to be proud of?
Exactly as you've said, for me, when people say, we needed to have colonization, for example, because they brought like Christianity, they brought English, they brought education, they brought formal education, they brought, to me, it just stems from this white savior mentality. There is nothing to be proud of. There is nothing, completely nothing. When you look at countries like China and the Asian countries that obviously rejected, like they violently rejected the British Empire, and so they really fought. They really, really fought, and there was a whole war. To me, I'm just like, we should have done that, because this white savior mentality that we're bringing you good things, we're saving you, it shocks me, because it's just a false, it's like a, I don't know how to say it, like a joke or a dream, sort of like believing that you're being beneficial, you're bringing good things to someone, but as you've said, like at what cost? And who said that what you're bringing is even beneficial? Who said that, like, without you, the Black people in Africa wouldn't have discovered Christianity? Who said that without you, we would have discovered formal education? Who said that without you, we wouldn't have done trade our own way or done this our own way? Like, and as well, like a lot of countries, Nigeria, India, Libya, so many countries are still struggling and still developing because we were stripped. We every time I hear like a bunch of like of my Chinese friends speaking like one common language, I always feel very like ashamed, because in Nigeria, like, we don't have a common language. We all have to speak English. I just feel like, oh, you know what, I missed out on, you know, having my own identity. It's like half of my, I don't know, like, I can speak English more than I can speak like the Nigerian languages are like that we have. And it's just so sad, because in exchange for that, white people thought they were bringing Christianity, or they thought that they were bringing formal education. They thought they were bringing something. But did you take away, like, you took away my history, you took away my in school, like in Nigerian school, we learn British history. We learn about Britain. We learn about like the saviors that were white people. And I'm just like, you know what? We had like Black people as well, like doing things. We had our own like Nigerian, the Yoruba Empire, the Benin Empire. We had so many things going for us. And we just allowed them take this in exchange for what, as you said, like rightly so, Sam, in exchange for what really? Like what? I don't know. It's just, it's shocking. It's just, I don't know. It's extremely shocking.
Dami, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree. I was gonna make a point, but I just forgot. It just passed me.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah.
If you think of it,
Yeah.
please do remind me, because we'll come back to it. What I'd like to go into now a little bit is the police. We'll talk about America at first, because that's really well documented, especially at the moment. There's been so many cries out for defunding the police, for abolishing the police altogether. And there is, I think is it Seattle or somewhere in the northwest of America, that have become like a non-policed zone, and they are running itself without the police. What are your thoughts? Actually, before we go into that, for people who don't know this, who are listening, to a law degree is what, 6-7 years long, to be like, if you're gonna get right down into it.
Everything.
3 years in university, and you have to do 1 year of law school, then you have to do 2 years of training. So 6 years roughly.
And then it takes a few weeks to become a police officer whose everyday job is enforcing that law. I think what is becoming really apparent is that the police don't have enough training. At the moment, police have, in America, I think it's like 2 weeks, like it might be 2 weeks a year of training. I think even that's a bit much, but I've forgotten the real figure. And which is why, personally, I don't think that defunding the police is the right idea, but the funds that are there need to be going in a different direction. Police should be spending like 25% of their time training, de-escalation drills, learning how to speak to people, because it's something you can get better at. Like learning to talk to people and handle situations, that is something that you can learn, and it's something that isn't going to get better while you are punting guns at people.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. The thing with what we call, you know, institutional or systemic racism, right, is even though you remove every single racist person there from the system is still racist. So you remove everyone that's racist from the system of policing. You put like non-racist people, right, in the system will still oppress Black people. So when we say let's defund the police, let's take away the money they have, what I have come to understand it as is, it's not just say let's not have the police anymore, right? I was looking at the figures of how much New York and California, like how much they spend on police, and it's like it went on to like 1 billion trillion, like it went up to those figures, right? And then I was like, okay, let's look at like how much you put in education, housing, feeding the homeless, and let's look at those figures and let's see how much they spend, like the government spends on those things. And we see the government spending 10 million, 5 million, $6 million on like things like education, housing, improving like employment opportunities, job searches, benefits. A lot of money is going into weapons and doing like giving the system power. Nothing is going into education. Dami said already that we need to teach, like you need to unlearn a lot of things. A lot of people are racist, right? Is because they have learned something. No one is born racist, so you learn something. When we take away some of the things that the police have and we begin to put it into other systems like the education, we have a system of schooling, of education, a curriculum that teaches you the right history. We can afford to teach you the right history this time. We can afford to teach you, this is how you spot racism. This is how you become more sensitive to things. Instead of like, I don't believe in, it's because of the way I obviously see things. I don't believe in the use of carrying guns to solve problems. For example, there was a counterfeit bill, right? A check, and obviously the store owner called the police. I don't think like that follows that is not the solution. You don't call the police for a small and minute issue as a counterfeit bill. I just think that is because of the lack of adequate alternatives to finding such solutions, and is when we begin to defund the police that we begin to find and look for different alternatives that are less violent and more more kind. More, what is calling the police to someone that had a man that has a fake check, even though it actually wasn't fake? What how does that solve anything? We need to invest in, and as you've said rightly so, Sam, we need to invest in teaching our police, like in education. A lot of things that the money goes to, right, is buying the police like faster cars and buying them like more like better guns that can shoot like tear gases, armor. Like none of those are going to teaching them. Yep. To give them weapons. None of those fees are going into teaching them how to undo their biases. None of them are going into education, as you've said. So none of them are going to training. We're not training the policemen. We're not training the store workers to know that when a black man has a fake bill, we don't just think that he's coming to steal. We're not teaching people like Amy Cooper that you don't call 911 and say an African American man is threatening me. She doesn't know, or she knew and she took advantage of the privilege that she had. So she knew that the system will work for her. So is why she said, she brought out all the guns. She said, I'm a white woman in distress and a black woman and a black man is coming after me. Because the system that we have of the police system that we have, when a white woman is crying, we rush and we speed to her aid. We need to find ourselves alternatives. Let's see how it works. Let's see. I think I'm not even completely sure of how, obviously a no police system will work, right? Because I do believe that we need the police, crime rates and stuff like that. But I think we need to take away, they have too much power. We need to invest in alternative means. We need to look for other options, because clearly, even the police, they originate from slave patrol. So funny how we had policemen because they needed to control the slaves. We needed people to put the slaves in check. So it's why we have the police. They actually grew from that's why it's a slave patrol. So we have the police now because they came from there. Let's look for other alternatives. I think it's time. The solution is we look for different alternatives by taking away the money. If the government is allocating 1 trillion to a particular state, we do not put 70 billion into the police and give the other people 10 billion to share between themselves. Let's give everyone equal amounts of our money and let's see how the system turns out then.
Dami,
So that's what
defund
I
the police.
think.
Sorry?
Defund the police, yes or no?
Yeah. I think particularly there's two issues. I feel like, you could actually decrease crime if you use the money. For example, in New York, the 6 billion they're invested in the supposed to be invested next year. I think it was the budget. That's way too much. I'm sorry. There's like, what are they using to buying flash grenades, assault rifles? Like, it's not like war zone in America. These are like communities where the police are actually protecting. You're not. This is not like the Iraq War. Like, we're not in a warring zone. And I feel like that money could be going into the communities, actually reduce crimes, because what causes crime? It's the lack of resources, lack of not having anything. So I feel like I have to go into the streets to make money to feed my family because I don't have any other recourse, because the state doesn't provide me anything. So you actually use that money to invest into, job centers, into like training programs for like menial jobs, like carpentry, like barbershops, things like that. Just like they can, jobs that they can be trained easily for people to like actually have something where they feel like I can earn from this, so I don't have to go into the streets. And I don't even think that the police, like, I don't think there's any like good statistic to show that having the police on the streets has actually decreased crime, because it's actually you could argue that it's made it worse, like, because it's made them more antagonize people more. They want to like, I just feel like investing the money into the communities will actually help to stop crime more than investing into the police to like tackle crime violently, aggressively on the streets. I feel like that's so against the objective. And also another point as well, a lot of police officers in America like have come from war zones in America, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. They've come back home veterans, and they've trained to be police officers. So they're already in that mind zone of retreat, or like do or die, like this is a do or die situation, like so I see like things like traffic stops, immediately escalation is immediately so high. So I feel like adding to Modupe's points about like investing in training programs, that's also another issue, like trying to help the police understand that de-escalation, not escalation. Don't A lot of these videos I watch, you see the police officers deliberately trying to rile up the passenger or the person so they can pull out their gun and shoot them because, oh, I see his hand moving slightly awkwardly to shoot because he's getting angry because he's getting harassed by me for not doing he's not actually doing anything. He's just I've just suddenly decided to pick on him, harass him for no reason, and then he gets angry because he's getting harassed for no reason, and then I escalate the situation so I can end up shooting him. And I feel like it's just totally defeats the point, and de-escalation, not escalation.
There's something that I think is key into, I'm going to say lowering rather than reducing, like rather than ending rather racism, because you are always going to have those people, but we need to make those people seem like they are
on the fringe of society.
100%. You're absolutely right. Yeah. One of the things that I think so important is representation for Black people and for all ethnic minorities. I'm going to tell you now about basically a bias of mine that was squashed, not recently, but recently enough that it's relevant. I was looking at sports and the members of the boards of whichever sports in this country and how many of those people are Black. For the FA, the Football Association in England, 2 of the 11 board members are Black. And I'd always had the preconception of thinking, well, there's obviously, like, there aren't as many Black people in this country. And then what someone brought a stat to me that completely changed my mind, and that in the inaugural Premier League season in England, 16% of the British players are black, and that's an automatic step up from the 3% of the population that's black at that point. In the 2018 World Cup, 50% of the England players were black. So why? There's obviously more than this 3% of the population represented. So why are they not being given these top jobs in sport? And it's not good enough to say maybe they don't want them, because that's...
Or maybe they're not good enough.
Yeah, the right man
That's
for the
another
job
one
argument. The right man for the job. No.
Mm-hmm.
What does representation, whether in sport or not, just whether in pop culture, in whatever, what do you think that has to play in the combating of racism, of prejudice, of anything?
Yeah.
We'll start with Dami, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I do think like it does play a role, because if it through sport, I feel like there's a global audience, and if you can send the message of diversity like throughout sport, and reinforcing that image, I feel like it seeps through society because it's viewed so much. Because I see all these discussions on Twitter of the Black Lives Matter, the kneeling, the discussions about managers, not enough black managers. I feel like there's a lot more discussion about that, and I feel like if through sport it can be used as an example, to set the records for other big corporations and businesses, and just have more representation of black people, because otherwise people struggle to have representation of their own rights, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Modupe, do you think?
I think, like, from what you've said, imagine 50% of the players, right, are black, but in the top like positions, just 3% are black. It's sort of like the overrepresentation of black people in the lower echelon of organizations. And so to white people, that is enough. Like, that is enough compensation. I mean, as you've said, like, unless you want to be, unless you want to really think about it, like, doesn't make any sense. A lot of people don't care. Like, they don't think it's an issue, is why even with women as well, why are women, like, they tend to be more of like receptionists and like in the lower echelon of organization rather than, and then you come to partner level and then you find like they're like 7 men but 1 woman, and then that sort of, for the normal person, like, it's not an issue. We have females, we have women in the company already, so it's fine. But as you've done, a lot of people should really think like, like, is this like right? Like, why isn't there someone, a good number of people, an equal number of people that can represent, everyone, or be a face, or, be an example to everyone? Why do we only have black people at the lower echelon of things? Why don't we have like black managers or black CEOs, or like black people who can, have a say in things? Why are white people still controlling black people? Why are white people still in the position of power to have a say in things? And is once again why I keep on saying performative action, when you just do things just to make yourself look good, and you hire black people, but they can't get to a position where they actually have a say. And it's very prevalent in society, and it's what at least like a lot of people are coming to understand and coming to see and coming to undo as well, that we need to also be like, I was telling my friend as well yesterday, that racism is power. White people have the power. They are able to be racist because the institution, the system gives them power. So a company's owner, the CEO, the board of directors are all white. And so all those white men have the power. Is why we need to give people, give women, give black women, give black men, give people of color, Asian, Arab men, the position of power. And so when things like this happen, they can see, oh wow, I think like what you said is wrong. I think like from a black person's perspective, I think like this sort of looks like in kind of way, because sometimes like when companies do things, I ask myself, like, don't you have any black person on the board to tell you that, this sort of looks like alarming? Or when pretty little thing like this brand, on this online shopping brand, when they released their own statement and they had like a black hand with a white hand, like holding hands, my question was, didn't you have like a black someone that could like raise alarm about, like, wasn't that alarming to the like average black person that this looks extremely somehow? But this is why, like, this is the danger of not having, once again, black people or people of color on your to tell you things, to push in power, because they cannot even call out the racism, they can't call out the little microaggressive things. And it's also why, as you said, like, we need to also encourage and have more people with like more diverse people in positions of power, so we can continue to teach and learn and unlearn.
What I think.
Can I?
Oh, go on, Dami. Sorry,
can I just ask you guys a question? Would you guys agree with affirmative action as a solution? I'm just conflicted because I don't have a complete opinion in it. I'm still 50-50 on it, on the subject of affirmative action.
So is affirmative action, just to get it right, and for people that mightn't have heard of it before, you have to, for a job, you have to interview a certain amount of black people. That's right. Yeah.
I think it's like a quota system where you have to have like certain numbers or requirements of black people in certain jobs and businesses. I think it's government sanctioned as well. But I'm just conflicted on that because some people have suggested it as a solution, but I studied it in politics when I did that in A-level, and I was just an American in the 92 under Bill Clinton, and I just was conflicted about it because I was like, back in those days in 1992, things hadn't progressed yet, so you could agree to a point that something radical needed to happen to progress black people in America. But on the subject of affirmative action in the UK, given that just 3% of the population is black, I don't know whether it's a solution. I'm just conflicted on it. What do you guys think?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to start, Modupe?
I also I'm sort of conflicted, but I do strongly feel like if we want to do something, we need to purposely take active steps. So we need to set laws that say you cannot be discriminated. Like you cannot form like discriminatory laws, or you need to have this set amount of black people, or certain amounts of white people, or certain amounts of, I think like given the situation of things then, with segregation and inequality and those kind of things, there was a need to have we needed to force them basically to do those things in order to run. And we do need to have those systems in place that also benefits us, so we can progress. But as you've said as well, in a system like the UK, where we only have 3% black people, does it even work? That's why I'm also a bit conflicted as well, because is that really, is affirmative action really a solution to things? Or, although on the positive side, it might encourage black people to do things, because we know we have the law to support and to back us up when we do things. The companies need to have us, they need to have us to fulfill this diversity quota. They need us, we need to be there for them to look good.
Yeah.
Is it really is it really a permanent solution? No. But I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
we're taking the right steps. We're going the right way. We need to, we've not gotten to the place where we can say we don't even need to like have laws because it should already be a mentality. We should
Yeah,
already
yeah,
pick Black people. We shouldn't have to want to fulfill a quota.
mhm,
But coming from where we're coming from now, we're coming from slavery, we're coming from slavery, and even though it might seem like a far away like thing, it happened like what 60 years ago. It's not as far away as you think, because a lot of them are still alive now. They're still like a lot of those people that were racist are still alive now. Their grandparents, their parents now. So we still need to. We've not gone to the place where we can now begin to say it's a norm. It's a norm. It's a thing that people do unconsciously, right? We need to make them take conscious steps. You need to, in a way, like using this word very, very carefully, you need to force them to say you need to have us. And then sooner or later in the better future, maybe we will have like a world where we don't have to be forced and, you know, we don't need to do it. But I think it's a step in the right direction, as I've said before.
I think you're absolutely right with that, Modupe. And what you said there that I think is really important is that it's like it's not perfect. One of the things, as I mentioned, it sort of ties in what I wanted to speak about with representation. Obviously, as you said, Modupe, it's someone to sort of give a different approach, give a different perspective on things that could help. But I also think a hugely important factor about representation is that children from any minority can see people in those positions, then they can see that it can be done. And that's one of the things, like that they can be the president of the United States, they can be on the board of the FA, they can be a really successful entrepreneur. They are seeing it being done in front of them by people that look like them. What I think is, and I think, as you've both said, affirmative action is complicated. One of the good things is even though, yes, you've got to interview a certain amount of every ethnicity, you're not requested to give them the job. But with this, it is young people, young aspiring people seeing people in the room doing things that they want to do. And I think with that mindset, it's not a perfect piece of legislation, but it has a good intention. And eventually it can work itself into being hopefully better.
It's like my friends, like my white friends asking me, you know, what can I do? Like, what can I do to help myself understand racism more? Because obviously white people can never experience racism, right? So they need to take active steps to teach themselves. It's affirmative action, like, what books can I read? Is why like a lot of people are reading books. All of my friends are reading books and just try and listen to podcasts and, you know, reading articles just to educate themselves, because they're taking conscious steps. We need to take like action. We need to like, it's not a thing that has become unconscious. Like, it's not a thing that they do that or they know because of the way the system has been. One by one, like as they begin to read and they begin to understand stuff, as you've said, like people see their children, their families will begin to understand them more. They can begin to explain to like their families, their friends that this is why you can't take this thing to a Black person. This is why. And then, you know, later on, it becomes like a habit that people understand. So as Dami said before, like a generation needs to take the action. We need to make the laws. We need to read the books. We need to do the things for another generation to know that this has become a norm. It's become a thing that we do. We must interview Black people because they're people, and we give them a chance because everyone deserves a chance. So, you know, yeah, it's not a perfect system, but it's just step, like I said, it's a step in that direction.
I agree with that.
Okay, look, I'd like to ask one more question. Well, not really a question, but one more thing to put to you, and then we'll wrap this up, because I've really enjoyed today. I think these sort of conversations are really healthy and important to have, especially at this time. It's really worth shining the light on everything that's going on. So what I'd like to, a reoccurring theme of this podcast so far has been about education. If there is one person out there that maybe they're hearing one thing from their family, one thing from here, what is like a bit of advice that you'd give to them to make sure that they take the right path? Modupe, we'll start with you, please.
Just to clarify the question, do you mean like how can they, like what steps can they take to educate themselves?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I should have worded that better.
Oh no, I just didn't understand it. I think especially as a white person growing up in a family that's probably racist, like one thing that you can do is asking questions, like asking I'm asking minorities, like, oh, this happened, how do you feel? And if minorities are not willing to educate you, that's fine. There's Google. You can always Google things. There are a number of like Angela Davis and Angela Harris, Kimberly Crenshaw, like a lot of women have gone out of their way to write books.
Satishika.
Yep, exactly. That have written books and have just to teach you. And like I said before, a lot of like, don't try to trivialize or question or defend, right? If you want to learn something, you need to put yourself in a way that you can understand, and sort of like try to mold it in a way that seems like reasonable to you, and then you teach. I remember like my mom had this sort of like belief about a couple of things that I found very questionable. I think about how she said a person could be more beautiful if they were lighter skinned. I think she was telling me that. And obviously that stems from a place of colorism, that comes from racism, that comes from believing that the lighter you are, the more beautiful you are. And she said, oh, that's just it's an opinion of mine. It's a preference, is what she said. I'm not saying that Black people are not beautiful, but I think that the lighter you are, like you obviously want. And I was like, and I felt very upset, right? But I was like, you know what, let me explain to you why I think so. And I was like ready. I was so determined to change her mind. Like I broke everything down to her, down for her. I just made her know that, you can have your opinions, but such things are not regarded as opinions. Those are very dangerous opinions to have. There's some things that people say, oh, it's a preference, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
Opinions plus power is why we have the system that we have today. Someone had an opinion, Black people should be enslaved, and you must say, oh, okay, let's go and take them. Such opinions and is why we have what we have today. So obviously, if I want to learn, I want to teach my friends, I need to be ready to fight a battle, because we're not just like teaching, we're going to, it's an active battle. We're just trying to make them know and trying to counter every single opinion that might have, every single belief that they have. So once again, for any person that wants to sort of educate themselves, educate their friends, don't try to control the epistemology. Don't try to control the narrative. Say it as it is, and just try to break it down for your white friend, your white family member, or even a Black friend who might not understand, because you find that some Black people as well don't understand all these things. And it's fine, because Black people should be allowed to not know things as well. Nobody has to be an expert in racism or race or problems or political issues, and nobody has to be. A lot of people don't understand these things, because it's fine. Like a normal child would think about all these things. Just try to be a little bit more understanding and just very patient. Being patient and just knowing when to stop, and just reading books really is what I can say has helped me so far and helped my friends.
Dami, how can people help themselves and educate themselves a bit more than this?
Yeah, I agree. There's books on Amazon. Like I think there's one by Angela Davis, and there's other books as well as Satishika. Like all these books about how to be anti-racist. I feel you could read that, and that would really be beneficial. But me personally, on the subject of what Modupe said about even some Black people who don't fully understand racism, and I mean, some aspects of racism. Because myself, I always thought racism was just someone treating you to your face, like as an unequal person, as demeaning you because of your skin color. I thought that was just it. But on the subject of systemic racism, only in the past few weeks, I've recently understood it. And, it's a structural thing where, it's not just someone in the street saying the N-word to you or something like that. It's more like it's something you can't see. It's a system of power that's being structured in a way to you know, to make Black people suffer from it. And, you know, it's a system that's being implemented from many, many years ago. And Black people till today still suffering from that. And you see instances like Grenfell Tower, you know, and those are just examples of like situations. Even the COVID-19 situation, the Black and ethnic minority group apparently suffer more from it or something. I don't know about the statistics, but I've just heard that in the news. And that's also another example. And it's just exemplifies another instance of institutional racism. And I only understood it I was just on Instagram and I saw a video like being shared of this forming a video about institutional racism being broken down. And I feel like if you just go on the internet, YouTube, read books, you can just really educate yourself on it, and you know, try and empathize with people, even though it might be hard to do because you know you've never experienced racism before. Like you can never really understand what it's like. But if you just you know dig like the deepest of your heart and try to understand, like you know, be empathetic of like try and imagine, even though it might be hard, like this person's experience, try and you know understand the pain they've gone through.
Just quickly following on what you said, I think the best way as well is also to be sensitive and emphatic, as you've said. You know, Sam, when you said you just realized that, you know, it didn't make any sense that we have 50% Black players, but we have 3% on the board. Like, it's just asking questions. It's just like asking, why are Black people dying? Like, why are they more likely to die from coronavirus? Yeah. Why is it that Black women die more at risk from dying of childbirth? Why are the police shooting Black people? It's just not accepting things. You wouldn't accept like your friend like hitting you, right? Because it's wrong. So you shouldn't accept it for other people as well. I think it's like even the thing with this like gang or like this, if I see like my friends all bullying one person or one person like bullying someone else and people are laughing, I wouldn't feel right to laugh because I'm like, why are you making someone else feel uncomfortable? It's, even though it's not done to me, it's still, everyone has human rights. Everyone has, you know, everyone should be respected. Everyone's humanity should never be, you know, put down or do anything to make them feel less than they are. So I should be able to ask questions, question you. I should be able to stop you when I see you doing things. It's just being more sensitive and asking more. I remember seeing a video of it was a literal video of a bunch of friends. They were all white, and there was one Black boy amongst them, and the police drove by, and I think they were causing like trouble or something like that. And then the police stopped by and grabbed only the Black boy and started hitting him. And his white friends were like, no, we're not going to have this. And they started fighting the policemen, right? And I felt like, you know what, yeah, like that's it. Like that's just being sensitive, knowing that why are you only like targeting one person? We were all there, like we were all taking part in this problem. Why have you only pulled up my friend who looks different to me? And now you're taking them to prison while we are let go. Everyone can go home except for this Black boy. It's just being sensitive. And it's not only for stuff like racism, stuff like bullying and rape and mental health issues, and just in real life, like situations like society as well. Just being more like emphatic, as Dami said, and just listening more and just being a better person. Really, I think racism is not that hard to solve. It shouldn't be an area of contention or complex. It should just be, I want to be a better person, and so I'm asking more questions, really.
Yeah, can I just add on a more lighter note? I don't know if you've seen those videos of like pedo hunters, people going to expose pedophiles. I feel like you could apply that in a way to racism, where people just go on the streets and like try to expose racists, like try to like, because I do feel like in a certain way, you know, the way pedophiles get branded, and everyone in society condemns them, and they're just not allowed to exist in society, and the way they get condemned is just like so brutal that, you know, I feel it's extreme, but like a certain element of me feels like, you know, that's the that's the conviction that we need to be able to stop racism, to be able to make it that it's such a fringe opinion to have, or a fringe belief to have, that everyone in society, like collectively, agrees that it's a bad thing. And you just got the fringe on the outskirts of society, and they're condemned for their beliefs, because racism should never be accepted. It's just not acceptable.
Okay. Obviously, you guys were both introduced to me by Greg Venio and Jerome Yates. And they've written, for people who don't know, Greg and Jerome were responsible for organising the Black Lives Matter protest in Durham, and they couldn't be on the podcast today. I was hoping to get everyone, but that didn't happen. But they've written a little something. I'd like to read that out, and we'll finish on that. So just from them. Hey guys, sorry we couldn't be on today. Massive well done to you for being so active about raising awareness over the past few weeks especially. It's been a massive wake-up call about modern day racism. We're glad that people have been coming together to show their solidarity to the shocking events in America. We hope it's starting to make more people aware that racism is more than just a few comments and the occasional things you hear in the news. It has sculpted our society, affecting beliefs, opportunities, and in extreme but not so uncommon cases, whether people live or die. An awareness of how society has sculpted our minds can let us see our blind spots so we can look into them as well as in others. Acting in this way will allow us to shape our beliefs more objectively, to help break down barriers in the future. If we can all commit to actively tackling this issue within the circle of people around us, collectively, we can continue to break considerable barriers. Although we've been very vocal about race recently, being active in this way can help tackle other problems like the crisis in Yemen and many others. Stay safe, Greg and Jerome. And I think that sort of message perfectly rounds off what we've talked about today. Really, I really appreciate having you guys on. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, not at all. Not a problem. Okay, look, this has been Sam Bryan Asks His Friends. Hopefully this has helped some people understand a little bit more. Thanks a lot. Bye.